Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marcia Butler, the webinar director here at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guest and get started, I need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars, such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting, are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. We're thrilled to bring you this educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenter will answer those queries during or after the webinar today as appropriate. If you ask a question in the chat box, go ahead and leave your phone number as well. And if we can't get to your question during this event, we'll make sure someone reaches out to you after today's event. We want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to our presenter today. Derek Glenser is a certified financial planner professional, husband, and father. With 20 years of education and experience within the financial service industry, he designs and executes financial plans for Gen X execs, soon-to-be retirees, and individuals and families looking for a more meaningful relationship with their financial advisor. Derek has the pleasure of working with individuals and families with diverse backgrounds, life experiences, goals, and financial needs, and has come to realize that success is not absolute, can be defined and measured in many ways, and is unique to the individual's specific set of circumstances. And Derek, I'm really excited to have you here. I know we've prepared for this, and I know you have a relationship with this topic, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Marcia. Again, my name's Derek Glenser. Thank you for participating in today's webinar for retirement planning for small law firms. Marcia is correct. I have a deep connection with lawyers. My wife happens to be an attorney, so I'm very familiar with, and many of my friends, and I have several clients that happen to be attorneys that fall into this situation. So very versed on this. So why don't we get into it and talk about some of the challenges for sole proprietors or small law firms. So obviously, you know, a lot of people get into the legal field because there is a possibility of, you know, high income that can go along with that. Regrettably, it often comes at the cost of student loan repayments, which can delay the investment in your business in your future. And in addition to that, if you're operating as a sole proprietor or a small practice, you have to learn how to run a profitable business. So law school debt it's a significant issue for a lot of attorneys, and I can speak firsthand because my wife had a significant amount of law school debt. And although her compensation for attorneys tends to be high, paying off those student loans can be a real burden on individuals and families. And, you know, from running the business side of things, and unless you specialized in that area, perhaps you have an LLM or you deal with business law or tax, attorneys certainly have the capacity to become good business people, but being an attorney is different from running a business. If you aren't part of a large practice, these are skills that you're often going to have to learn on the fly. So why do you need a retirement plan? Well, succession planning in a law firm isn't the same as other businesses that have recurring income. And likely there's not going to be an annuitization of the business. And because of that, it's important to concentrate on saving for your future in retirement. So attorneys develop their book of business, and that makes them attractive to be hired and as a driver of your compensation. However, unlike a CPA, or like in my case, I'm a certified financial planner, where it's very common to sell our practice, to sell our book of business based upon a multiple of our earnings. And typically, that's not the way in which attorneys unwind their book of business. It's typically passed on to a junior partner on retirement. So because of that, it's important to concentrate on your savings for the future in a retirement plan. So what are the factors that go into this decision? Well, first, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to maximize your personal savings, or are you trying to retain valuable employees? What is your cash flow like? And what kind of flexibility do you need with that? So does your business produce steady cash flow? Are you doing heavily billable hours, or do you receive large judgments periodically? So based upon the type of cash flow and other factors, you may need a different type of savings vehicle. So are you planning on adding employees? So not all plans are created equal in terms of the costs and the benefits. So retirement plans can range from extremely low expenses to quite substantial, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And so all of those factors, the cost of these plans can be, can vary greatly. And, obviously, what tax advantages are you looking for? Maximizing tax considerations for both the participant and the employer's benefit should be taken into account when selecting a plan. So there are tax advantages of installing a retirement plan. And as an employer, you get the ability to deduct contributions, and that's up to 25% of eligible compensation for most plans. In addition, there are tax credits and other benefits for starting a plan that may help reduce the cost. So eligible employers may be able to claim a tax credit of up to $5,000 for 3 years for the ordinary and necessary costs for starting a SEP, a simple IRA, or a qualified plan like a 401k. So if you qualify, you may claim the credit using form 8881 and credit for small employer pension plan startups. But you really should consult with your tax preparer to determine if you are eligible for that. And retirement plans also can attract and keep better employees. We'll get into that a little bit, which helps reduce that new employee training costs. So keeping employees, just like keeping a client, it's easier than getting a new one or rehiring and retraining. And a retirement plan can help create that stickiness with your employees. So we've got the tax advantages of the retirement plans. As an employee, you get the employee contributions, which can reduce your taxable income. In addition, you may have, basically you're able to contribute to these plans in most cases where it's tax deferred, so you don't pay taxes on the contributions to those plans. And the contributions are then, and the gains are not taxed until distributed traditionally at your retirement, or at least 59.5. So let's take a look at some examples of plans that, I have installed for, some clients. The first one that we're going to take a look at is called the Simplified Employee Pension IRA, or Individual Retirement Account, the SEP IRA. So this is a great plan for sole proprietors. So if you're an individual, this is a really great plan because it has low administrative costs, basically setting up an account with your financial advisor. You've got flexibility in terms of the contributions that you can make. It's easy to set up, and you can contribute up to 25% of your compensation. So, basically, that means you can contribute up to $66,000 a year. And all you do is basically, prior to submitting your taxes, you sit down with your CPA and they can calculate how much you're eligible to contribute. So setting it up is as simple as I stated, setting up a brokerage or a traditional IRA with your advisor. One of the drawbacks is if you do have an employee and you made a determination, hey, I would like to make a 25% contribution to my account, you have to do the same for them. So I like to use an example. If you make $200,000 and your employee makes $50,000 and you do a 25% contribution, you can do a $50,000 contribution to your account. The downside of that is you also have to make a $12,500 contribution to your employee. So if you're an individual and you don't have any employees working for you, SEP IRA is a great tool because you can contribute a significant amount to that.
Can you talk a little bit about how a SEP IRA is set up? I understand it's relatively simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just effectively your financial advisor, or if you're working independently, you basically can create it. It's not any different than really setting up a traditional IRA account. It's not an ERISA plan technically, so it's not held to the same type of standards, but it's very simple to install. It's really just a matter of filling out a form. There isn't any specific paperwork or anything that goes along with it. Now, simple IRA is also great for sole proprietors, but also for companies with fewer than 100 people. So again, this has low administrative costs. It has some flexibility relative to contributions. It is very easy to set up. And, the employer is required to contribute each year either a matching contribution of 3% of compensation or a 2% non-elective contribution for each eligible employee. When it comes to those contributions made by the employer, those are immediately vested in the employee's account. So that's one thing to consider. Also, with the simple, it doesn't have as large of a contribution amount that you're allowed to contribute. So on this, you can contribute up to $38,000 per year between the employer and employee side. And if you're the employer, you're doing both sides of that, obviously, for yourself. And that includes catch-up provisions with that as well. If you're below 50, it's approximately $31,000. I want to make a comment about the matching contribution. This is where you get some flexibility in it. You're required to do 3% elective contribution, and you have to do that at least 3 out of every 5 years. So let's say, for example, you had a year where times were tough. You could reduce it to 2% or even 1%, but you just have to ensure that at least 3 out of 5 years the plan is in place, you've done the 3%. So you do have some flexibility relative to the matching contribution that's provided to the employee. So obviously the plan that's most familiar for most of us is the 401k plan, but there are several different types of 401k plans. I'm going to describe a little bit about these and we'll get more into the specific benefits of the 401ks as well. But obviously under the 401k plan heading, you have the solo 401k. So the solo 401k is, as its name suggests, it's for one participant. So you can do a maximum of $66,000 per year between the employee and employee contribution. And if you're a sole prop, you're both. And in addition, you can do a $6,500 catch-up. So you can actually contribute around $73,500 per year for those individuals over 50. In addition, we've got the traditional 401k profit sharing plan. So because the expenses of running a 401k are significant, they are usually reserved for larger firms and companies. So if it is a traditional 401k profit sharing, There's not a required contribution by the employer, but there are testing requirements like top heavy testing and ADP testing, which means the average deferral percentage. So that's something to be considered if you're going to install one of these plans. In addition, with any 401k, there's going to be expenses associated with it, like your third-party administrator, the actual provider of the plan. So there are lots of expenses that go along with these. In addition to the traditional 401k plan, we have a feature that's added on to that to make it a little bit better, at least from administrative standpoint, which is called the safe harbor. And this adds a feature to that traditional 401k, like required employer contributions of either 100% of the first 3% of contributions and 50% on the next 2%, or a straight 3% contribution to all employees. And again, these are immediately vested. And by doing that, by creating the safe harbor and meeting those, you are basically able to avoid some of the testing requirements that are on the traditional 401k plan, like the average deferral percentage. And then finally, and this is very helpful, and I've seen this used in several instances, is the new comparability 401k. So this is a slightly newer plan, and it's very effective for small firms, especially with partners that tend to be at least 10 years older than junior partners or other employees. So unlike other types of 401k profit sharing, these plans permit employers, to allocate multiple contribution rates to different employee groups. So making larger contribution rates to the business owners. So you can actually, it's not really discriminating, it's just creating different classes within the same plans, which isn't often allowed in plans. And in this one, it does. So if you've got an age gap between perhaps a junior partner and a senior partner, and the senior partner is driving a lot of the income and wants the flexibility of being able to contribute a little bit more, this is a great example of a plan that you can institute in order to, increase the amount for the older partner. So 401ks, again, let's get into a little bit more of the specifics. So you have some flexibility in terms of contributions. Employees may contribute more to this plan than under their IRA plan. So if you're an employee, you can do $22,500 per year. And then if you're above 50, you get the $6,500 amount. So you can contribute literally $29,000 worth of income. So that's a significant increase compared to just a straight up IRA plan. So the administrative costs on 401ks are certainly on the higher end of the spectrum. Like I said, you have a third-party administrator that helps provide all of the testing and things that go along with these plans in order to keep them compliant. So this is certainly, something to be considered before installing a plan. If you're planning on, taking your small firm and making it larger, maybe then getting a 401k at the beginning of the process is a good plan, because you can grow with the plan. But if you're planning on staying small, 401k may not be the right type of plan for you. So like I said, you need to test that the benefits do not discriminate in terms of the favor of highly compensated employees. And the other features that go along with this plan, the 401k, compared to others, is you could put loan provisions in there, which is, good if, that is deemed a benefit. As a financial advisor, I don't advise my clients to be taking loans out of their 401ks, but it's a feature that can be added on to a 401k. So realistically, what you want to do is to build a solid team behind you. So make sure that you've got people behind you that can support you in your business and look after your personal interests. So getting a payroll provider and a tax professional is probably really critical as you are starting to build your practice. Also, I think it's important to have a mentor. Perhaps you started in a partnership and then you've gone off on your own, and that's fine. But maybe somebody at your old office or your old firm might be able to mentor you, or get involved with an organization where you can meet some other sole props and learn from them. And I found that, in my own practice, that's one of the ways in which I've really been able to grow my practice and learn is from other people that have already done the work. And obviously, if you're going to install one of these plans, it's great to get with your financial advisor, and they can describe to you what's probably going to be the best fit given your series of and the direction that you're taking your firm and your practice.
All right, well, we have some time for questions now. Here's a question. What's the timing that you need to be cognizant of when you set up a retirement plan for your company?
Yeah, so each plan is slightly different and slightly unique when it comes to the timing. But for example, simple IRAs and safe harbor 401ks need to be established by October 1st of the year in which they're created. SEP IRAs, profit sharing plans, and traditional 401ks need to be established by the tax filing deadline, and that includes extension. So there is some variance between plans.
Okay, so it's a lot more planning than, say,
Yeah.
just establishing a Roth or a traditional IRA,
Yeah.
which you can just set up.
I mean, most of them are pretty, by tax filing deadline, it's pretty easy to do, right? So really, it's just the simple and the safe harbor that have to be in there because it's just slightly more complicated.
All right, here's another question. What are the pros and cons of having a financial advisor who's just for your business versus your business and your personal finances?
Well, I generally speaking operate on a personal level with most of my clients, and then I do as an ancillary benefit provide them retirement plans. It's good because then the pros of that are I know exactly what's going on with not just their personal stuff, but also the issues that are surrounding their, potential plans and understanding what they're trying to accomplish from a goals-based perspective. So I think in that regard, if they're competent relative to installing these plans, I think it's fine to do. I think I would say maybe a con might be if they're not familiar enough with like a 401k. So I will say that, my expertise is really with the smaller level plans. I have great familiarity with simples, SEPs, solos, and new comparability plans for smaller practices. A larger practice, I would probably partner with somebody that's where their specialty is, because those tend to be, a little bit more cumbersome relative to the administration. But I think it's perfectly acceptable to work with somebody, provided that they have the experience in that area. And it will help with your personal side of things if they are involved on the professional.
All right, this is a good question about starting your practice. So say you are still in the building your startup phase of your practice, not really have enough cash flow to save for retirement. When do you flip that switch? When do you say, okay, it's time for that business to start paying you into the and paying your retirement?
So, I mean, honestly, the more and more you look at these things, they talk about, how the benefits of trying to save earlier than later. So I think it's important. I mean, obviously we all have to eat. We've got to pay our bills. We have to, pay our mortgages and our rent and the ancillary services in order to make our firms or our practices successful. Everybody has to do that. But we have to look at saving for retirement as just like one of those bills. The longer you delay installing a plan or creating savings for yourself, the bigger the bill gets. And so by delaying contributing on to your retirement, you're just increasing the bill exponentially because of the time value of money. So it really is going to be an individual, there's what you should do and what you will do. A good financial advisor will make recommendations for you, but at the end of the day, you are going to have to deal with the consequences of those decisions. So if you elect not to, save early, you have to understand it's going to require a considerable amount more money for you to retire on later on down the line.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we have for questions right now. I want to thank everyone for being here and also for your input. To our attendees, look for an email soon for a link to the replay of this event, and you're welcome to share that with friends and family and colleagues. And again, thank you, Derek, for being here and presenting on this topic, and for the organizations that have made this webinar possible. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Well, once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at another webinar soon.